Hey, food explorers, welcome to the episode today. I am thrilled beyond belief. Today I am interviewing two amazing women in the chocolate industry, Pam Williams and Alysha Kropf. Now, if you don't know who these ladies are, they are part of Ecole Chocolat. That's actually where I went to chocolate school. A lot of people are like, weren't you a dolphin trainer? Whatever. Doesn't matter. I went to chocolate school, and these ladies were the ones that provided the education. Pam has actually been in the chocolate industry since 1981, and then she founded Ecole Chocolat in 2003. And Alysha is actually her niece, and she joined on with the business, and she is part of helping with the student experience. They have programs for chocolatiers, chocolate makers. They have master classes. Anything you can think of, they've got at their school, and it is an amazing experience. I highly recommend it. Even if you're not going to be crazy like me and do chocolate for a living, you can still learn so much. So, Pam, Alysha, thank you so much for being on today. Welcome.
Well, it's great to be here.
Thank you so much for having us,
Yep.
Colleen.
And
You are
great to see
so
you, Colleen.
so welcome. I put together my list of my bucket list of who I wanted to be on the podcast. And of course, you ladies were on there because you've really done so much for the chocolate industry. And Pam, so I want to start with you because, you started in the chocolate industry as a chocolatier and you had a business of your own. So how long did you run that chocolate business for before you started Ecole Chocolat?
I did my chocolate business, which was, I think about 12 years. And then I fell in love. During that time, I kind of fell in love with the internet and decided to go back to school to learn how to be a programmer. They didn't call it programming back then. They called it multimedia. And because I just wanted to learn the back end. But I had that for about 12 years, and I sold it to a friend, so it went into good hands. And to be honest, I think it's still around as a wholesaler. And then I started Ecole Chocolat. I learned how to do programming. I was one of 3 women in my class of 125 people. The rest were 20-year-old boys, and me and a couple other gals. And it was full time for like 9 months. And then I started working with UBC because they were looking for someone who had a business background and a marketing background, but understood the internet at that time, right? That was right in the very beginning. We're talking like the late 90s, early 2000s. And then one time I was in Chicago doing an internet marketing seminars for a conference. And I'd stayed in the chocolate business, writing, doing a lot of things because I love the industry. The people are so great, as you know. We love each other. And this person wanted to start their own chocolate shop. And really, at that point in time, there was nowhere where anybody could really go to do that. There still really isn't, except for us, of course, where you not only learn all the techniques and all of that, but you also learn how to make that into a successful business. And because in my business, when I had it, I made at the beginning a few mistakes. So my goal when I thought about, I was in Chicago and bored and waiting to fly home the next day. And I thought, why can't I teach professional chocolate making online? Because I'd been doing this work for UBC and our local university. And it was like project management. We were doing all these online courses. And so I thought, why can't I do this? Because I know what he needs to know. There's lots of things. Learning a technique is fine. Learning a recipe is fine. All that's good. But when you try to put it together to make a successful business, it's not that easy. So that's how Ecole Chocolat started.
It's amazing. And it's so interesting because when we think about it, yeah, it was like the beginning of the internet. I know there's some listeners out there that are like, there was a point where there wasn't an internet. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there wasn't always an internet.
Right.
But what you guys did with the online classes was really, pioneering. So then,
Yeah.
Alysha, when did you kind of come into the business with Pam?
Well, so it's always been part of my life. As a little girl, obviously went to the chocolate shop as often as I could. And one of the stories I like to tell is my mother and I would help Pam when things got really busy. So before, Christmas and Easter, she would ask my mom to help foil like the solids, the bunnies, the Santas. And so I was the sticker girl. I'd put the little Ecole Chocolat sticker on the back of those foil figures. So chocolate's always been part of my life. I joined Pam with the school 10 years ago.
Okay.
So I actually have a background in organizational psychology. I had worked in some sort of research type positions. And after I had had my twins, I had my older son and then I had my twins, and I was looking for something different, something I really enjoyed, something that was a lot more fulfilling. And I just said to Pam, is there anything that I could do? And she said, oh, there's things that you could do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's the rest is history, as they say.
Yes. And I love we talk to a lot of people and we talk about food, and we really see a lot of businesses where it does become a family affair, and where, you're working the business and you're like, you know what? I could use some amazing help. Hey, wait a second. I've got this person right here. And I also love that you were the sticker girl as a young child. That's an amazing job for a kid.
Yes, it was. It was fun.
I love it. And
Yeah.
so the thing I love, so with Ecole Chocolat, I did the professional course, I did the master's course. I did my favorite actually was the mastering chocolate flavor course. That one was my favorite.
Amazing. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was funny
We
because my
think
partner
that's a
Jason,
fabulous sport.
oh, it's
Yeah.
so fabulous. And so the mastering chocolate flavor course was really fun because what you did in that one was you were learning how to distinguish, 70% chocolates from different makers, 70% chocolates from different beans, or you were just learning about how flavor profiles work. And so I would do blind taste testing, and my boyfriend would come home and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Shh." And, and I was like blind taste testing chocolate. And he's like, "Oh my God, how can you figure this out?" I'm like, "They all taste different."
Yeah.
Right.
But it was really fun. And to your point earlier, Pam, when you start the business and you make the mistakes,
Uh-huh.
but you also see the successes, and then you can teach that to somebody so that they don't have to do that.
That's right.
What were some of those sort of early mistakes that you're like, oh, when we put this program together, we've got to talk about this?
There were quite a few, but when we started the business, I had been in retail, but it was women's ready to wear, high fashion stuff. And so I knew the front of the house, so to speak, right? I knew how to market. I developed a product line. I got all excited. It was looking really good. And it turned out some of the lessons that I learned was number one, you need a tempering machine once you start your business. The first Christmas, we started in September, which is a good time to start, August, September, because then you ramp up to your biggest and most important selling season. So you get a lot of money in at the beginning, which helps you to overcome the mistakes you're going to make. And I didn't know we were hand tempering all through Christmas. We had people lined up. We couldn't we couldn't keep up with the demand because I didn't even know there were tempering machines. So, I had no idea of that little part of it. And one of the things that I always say to people, if you develop a line of like, say, 12 or 20 products, then you like have a party, you invite everybody to buy these. Your friends and family think everything you do is fabulous. when you open it to strangers who don't know you, who are getting to know you, they determine what is good and what isn't. And when I opened the shop, we were half like cakes. We had cakes. Everything was chocolate, but we had a lot of pastries and cakes and that kind of thing as well. And the only thing people wanted were truffles. So truffles went from being part of our product line to basically the whole product line. And that's one of those things that you just have to learn over time after people tell you. But those are just, a couple of mistakes that I made. There were many, many more.
For those listening that don't know what a tempering machine is, it's a machine that helps you instead of hand tempering, where you sit and you wait patiently for hours for the chocolate to reach temperature so that you can actually put it into molds and make chocolate bars. So I did 5 years of hand tempering through Christmas, and I
Oh, yeah.
hated my life.
Yes.
And I
Yeah,
finally got a
exactly.
machine. But when I took, and that lesson that you just talked about there with what people want, when I did my master chocolatier course, I was at Bowen Island with Joanne, and
Yeah,
that was the number one thing she said was she thought that everybody was going to want these chocolates, and she realized they did not. So what
right.
you might think people want, not what they want. so
Exactly.
so
And they
with
tell you with their pocketbooks,
totally,
with what they buy. Yeah.
yeah. And it's funny because when I started, I was like, I'm going to do bonbons all the time. And I was like, oh my God, I hate making these. I'm not doing this. I'm doing chocolate bars. And it's like bonbons are like Easter and Christmas time, but the rest of the time I'm
Yeah.
just like, no, I'm good. So
Yeah.
Alysha, with you, because you're doing a lot of the work, with the students and stuff like that. So when they're taking the courses from you, what are some of the things that they're saying, that they love about the courses, or that they are like, oh, I'm struggling with this thing? Because it's, you're learning an entire new skill and building a business.
Right. And so I am really more of the marketing person, the program development person. So our two amazing instructors, we have Rachel McKinley and T. Lawrence Simon and Pam. They are really the ones that more interact with the students when they're in the program. I'm the one that's telling them how great it is and why they should be taking it. So Pam is probably the better person to answer that question.
Well, I think, again, just like you just said, you're totally right. You're learning a whole new skill. And in our programs, we try really hard to take you through it kind of slowly. Like, okay, we're going to start with what chocolate actually is and what's what it's made up of and how it reacts. And, then we're going to temper. And what I find a lot of times people are so excited that I want to make a bonbon right now, and we're going, no, just wait a little bit. We want you to understand chocolate, because if you don't understand chocolate, then your bonbon will not work. So, there's a lot of people who want to like jump in and learn everything right at the beginning. And while you can do that, we like to pace you a tiny bit more, because my goal is to make you, our students, as absolutely smart as I can
Yeah.
when they leave us. And so we want them to know everything, but they struggle with tempering. Tempering is a big issue, um, because there's so many variables, your climate in your room, your chocolate itself, and, all these different things that you have to kind of take into account. But the good news is, as you remember with the program, you're with us for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of time to help you get through all those problems.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest one is tempering, and another is making, ganache and caramel. Those are always a little tough to kind of get going right at the beginning, but once you got them, you got 'em.
Yes.
And I
And
think
with
one of the things, sorry, Colleen, when
no, go
people
ahead.
start to, is just, I think sometimes there is like an apprehension, sort of like a lack of confidence. And so I think we do a lot of, we take all the intimidation out of this. Like, we are here for you, whether you've, never made anything or you've already been trying to play with chocolate. We are here to make you feel, confident in this, this transformation of skills that you're going to undergo. And, we're with you every step of the way.
Yeah.
Right.
And you guys too, like, one of the things I loved was you did your chocolate, like the series where you interviewed other chocolatiers. And I love that series, especially when I was first starting, because I was like, why is this chocolate and then the tears? Why is it not tempering? And then you cry. And I still cry a lot, but I really cried in the beginning because you
Right.
kind of, it's that first time where you're on your own, right? And you're like, oh, why is this not working? Now I'm like, I'm glad. And I say this to new chocolatiers, anybody that that comes to me and is like, can I get some help? Learn to hand temper first. I know you can
Mm-hmm.
get a machine, and great if you can afford the $20,000 sell me. Good for you. I'm happy for you. However, if that machine breaks down, what are you going to do?
Just
Exactly.
today, Colleen, I was in a Facebook forum and someone said, I'm just starting out. What tempering machine should I buy? I said, you need to learn how to hand temper first so that you understand the science.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's funny because I do these really fun chocolate bar classes where I bring people in and they make their own chocolate bars. And I actually had a woman and she was like, I was so nervous because I was going to have to temper chocolate. And my description basically is, we're going to take, pomade and we're going to put it in the chocolate and we're going to do some bang, bang, wiggle, wiggle. And people are like, huh? And I just make it fun for them because I don't
Yeah.
want them to feel like, oh, I have to do a science lecture. I'm like, no, we're going to have
That's right.
fun with this. So,
Yeah.
Alysha, you do a lot of the Facebook and the social media and
Yes.
all that. Yeah. I also really appreciate the messaging that you put out because as a chocolatier, when it starts to get busy and you put out that you can do this, I'm like, oh my God, I can do this.
That's so nice to hear because I love doing that. It's just one of the things that um I love it when, I am able to just say something that is just like exactly what someone needed in that exact moment. It just makes me feel great that I'm helping you. So yeah, I love those posts. I always have that in my calendar, do the you've got this post. So
Yeah.
right before everything gets crazy.
That's
Totally.
right.
And it's really interesting too because every chocolate company is very different. Like, people always are like, "Oh, you must be so busy at Valentine's." No, Valentine's is not busy for me. Valentine's for me is busy with classes, but not
Mhm.
selling chocolate. I find
Mhm.
Valentine's is more of that fancy dinner jewelry, and the
Yeah.
cheap stuff from London Drugs. But Easter and Christmas, this is banana pants season.
Right.
So then I'll see your post and I'm like, I just calm down. You're gonna get it done.
Yep. Yep. And you
And
need to
the,
sleep and you need to eat and you need to
yeah.
hug your cat or your dog or your husband or whoever. And it's like, you will get through
Absolutely.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
And and to your point there as well, like when you see new students and they're posting in these forums and they are struggling, that back to basics that you just said, like, get back to basics, learn to do it by hand, take some time. And I know for me, when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, what if I sell out of chocolate? People will be so angry at me. People aren't angry. They're like, oh, nice. You sold out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have nothing for you. um,
Exactly.
you did a couple posts just recently about something that's very near and dear to all the chocolatiers right now, and that is about prices and raising prices.
Hmm.
Right.
Oh, when you put out posts like that, Alysha, what's kind of the feedback from people? Like, are they like relieved that somebody's giving them permission to, raise their prices or that they can start looking?
I've been really surprised about kind of the whole range of conversation around that amongst chocolatiers. I've seen everything from, which I found sort of surprising, this, well, I guess I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go out of business.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know that that's a very personal decision and I'm not saying that that's not okay if that's what feels right to you. But I think it just surprised me that there wasn't just some sort of, maybe I should raise my prices and see how that goes. And so I think, when we put that post up, it was, I guess, right end of August, early September. So we got some feedback, oh yeah, I did that, 2 months ago or 3 months ago. Some people said, oh yeah, I've been meaning to do this. I've raised them and not as much as I think I should have. And other people kind of saying, yeah, I really need to do that. Okay. Thank you for giving us ways to kind of think about how to manage that. So it really was quite a range. I think most people just seem to have kind of come to terms with the fact that they have to raise their prices. And I think, every chocolate business owner knows their customers best. But I would also just, want to encourage people to remember that people love chocolate, and it's something that's an affordable indulgence. And while they may not be happy that you raised your prices, I think one of the things in this particular situation where the media for once has actually done chocolate a service as opposed to some of the disservices that it has done in the past little while is the media have talked about this, right? So I think maybe not all consumers have heard about it, but I think a lot of people have, and that it is about the price of cocoa. It's not just that chocolatiers are trying to make a ton of money. It's like my raw material has gone up 10, 20, 30, 40%. I can't keep my prices the same or I won't be in business anymore, And so I think that there's an understanding of that, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
Right.
mean,
I agree.
yeah. And I think, for you, Pam, being in the industry for so long, did you ever think that chocolate would get to $12,000 a ton? It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, I think it took everybody by surprise. I don't think that it was just a bunch of things coming together that all of a sudden went poof like that. So it is something, it's coming down again. It's still high, but the futures are kind of coming down a slight bit. So we'll see where it ends up. And I think Alysha really said a thing that we always have to remember. Chocolate is really a cheap indulgence. It's a cheap indulgence. If I want have a dinner and serve a nice wine, I'm looking at $20, maybe a little more. If I want to be fancy, I'm looking at $100. And that's for something that comes and goes in one evening. And chocolate, the most expensive bar that's really on the market is probably maybe $15, maybe for, most of the beautiful chocolate bars are somewhere between around $10, $12. And it's a indulgence that lasts a while. A lot of times people don't sit down and go, and the whole thing's gone. They'll have some, and the next day they'll have a little more, and the next day they'll have a little more. And bonbons, the same thing. When you get a box of bonbons, most people don't sit and eat them all at the same time, like you would with a bottle of wine, maybe.
yeah.
And so your money goes much further when it comes to that lovely indulgence.
Yeah.
So chocolate is still, when we wrote our book, it was all about chocolate is way too cheap, you know? And
Yeah.
that's because it's always been a candy bar.
Yes. And it's funny because, yeah, TOEIC chocolate aside at $58 for 50
Yeah.
grams. I mean, I love
Yeah.
Charles Michel. He's, hi Charles, I love you. You're friends. But
Yeah.
but that's a
Yeah.
whole that's something completely different. But you're right. Most people will buy a chocolate bar 10, 12, $15, and they're not typically eating the whole thing in one sitting. And, one of the things I do in my classes is I say to people, your Mars bar, your Snickers bar, those are called candy bars now because there's really no
Yeah.
chocolate in them anymore. And they're like, what,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I'm like, go look at the ingredients. People would be like, oh, chocolate keeps me up all night. Are you eating a Snickers? Okay, the sugar is keeping you up all night. let's,
Exactly.
let's,
Exactly.
back up a little bit here.
Yeah.
But and we've done a few episodes about chocolate futures, and so for those just tuning in that have not heard about it, so chocolate was usually around $2,500 a ton, went up to 12,000. I looked yesterday, it's at 76.64. So it's
Right.
come
There
down a
we
little
go.
bit. But for people that are in the industry that are now looking at buying their chocolate stock right now, yikes.
I
Like
know.
I'm frightened
Yeah.
for them. We actually bought our we took everything that we made at Christmas last year and we bought our chocolate stock in February, which was
Yeah. Yeah.
very challenging.
Mm,
That's what a lot of people did. Yeah.
yeah.
Just, get through it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm hoping we don't have to buy any more. But and the other thing too is we actually dropped all of our white chocolate, everything except for one chocolate bar. I can't afford to buy white chocolate. And I had to keep the cookies and cream because people come after me with pitchforks otherwise. That is the bar.
Right.
Right.
Now,
Right.
this is another thing that I love is the partnerships that you guys have with chocolatiers around the world so that students, if they're like, I want to go to France, I want to go to Italy. So, building up those relationships, how did that come about that you thought, you know what, let's do these in-person things, but in these amazing places?
Well, I thought to myself, because people kept saying, oh, well, can we come somewhere and, learn in a facility after they had taken, our graduates were saying this. In just 1 second. Our graduates were saying that, they wanted to really have that kind of face to face thing now that they had learned all the basics. So I ended up being in France for a conference, and nothing that was kind of from my other life, not quite a chocolate life, but I decided to go down and visit Valrhona. So I went down and I'm visiting them, and I was talking to Frederick Bau, which is amazing that he actually talked to me. And I was saying, well, could I bring a small group of chocolatier to Valrhona for training? And he thought about it for a moment or two. And we had been talking, I was telling him what we did and what, that our people were looking at starting businesses so they would become his clients and, so on and so forth. So he looked at me, he says, okay, yeah, that's okay. I found out later they had never done that before. The only people that they let come into that. Now, this was, what do we think, Alysha? About 2005, I think, because we're 2004, because we're having our 20th
Right.
anniversary of this year of taking people to France, to Valrhona for training. And nobody had ever done that. They would only take their good clients, they would bring them in and give them training so that they could go back out. And mostly they were pastry chefs. They weren't necessarily chocolatier. They were pastry chefs. And so we had to develop a program that was bonbon focused, that was whatever. And I think he just kind of got into it. And then the biggest problem was finding a training, one of his chefs that was comfortable speaking English,
Oh
because the
yeah.
classes at that were all in French,
Oh my
just in
gosh.
French. So anyway, it was like this thing, and that just happened because everything came together. But the reason why I wanted to do it was I fell in love when I was in France with how the French love chocolate and how they uh, people just don't think of France and chocolate. They think of Belgium or Switzerland. And the French really just make these gorgeous, beautiful things. And it was like nobody knew that. So then we went from there, and I kind of did the same thing when I went to Belgium about a year or two later. And, so it's kind of like, me going in, cold calling kind of, and saying, my people are great. They would love this. They would, and everybody kind of goes, oh, okay,
Yeah,
So in
absolutely.
Italy, Italy is great. We're hoping to get that back next year. We had to go through a good friend of mine who lives in Italy because you can't do anything in Italy without having an on the ground person. And we have, the program is fabulous,
I
just
love it.
fabulous. So
Love it.
that's how those kind of started.
I
I
love
don't know
it.
if you want to talk about some of like the cocoa farming, like those programs
Yes.
as well. Yeah.
Yes.
So Pam, those were more like people approaching you, right? More than you kind of asking people. The farm.
Um, Costa Rica.
I was, well, because we used to do Ecuador, and then
Yeah.
yes, now we have Costa Rica and Hawaii. Yeah, Costa Rica is with George and Julio, who are also our graduates. So, did you ask them to do it, or did they ask you? I can't remember.
I asked, I, I think they said to me, I think we should do this,
Right.
that we would love to have people come down.
Yeah.
So can we start at the beginning?
Of course. Start at the beginning.
Okay. Well, we also do programs for chocolatiers and chocolate makers where we take you into the farms. I felt it was really, really important that people had that backstory. They could say, like, people come to you and that you can say, oh, I've been to a farm. I know how it works. I've been there. I've seen it. And we started in Ecuador with one of our graduates had lived part-time in Ecuador. So we did that one for a few years. And then we started doing one in Costa Rica because our graduates, Julio and George, live in Costa Rica and wanted to show their country and their cacao to everyone. So we've been doing that one now for, I would say 15 years, I think.
Probably. I think that
And
predated me.
yeah. And it's an every other year program. Doesn't happen every year, but it's every other year. And George and Julio are great. It's a week on the ground in Costa Rica, going to different farms, really understanding the whole value chain from the tree, to chocolate making, because they also make their own chocolate there. And then about 7 years ago, with COVID, 2 years went by, and so time went crazy. Anyway, I would say 7 years ago, it could have been 8, could have been 9, but anyway, we started doing a program in Hawaii where you actually work on the farm for
Amazing.
half the time you're there. You do harvest, you do fermentation, you do drying. We work it all so that there's some fermented beans you could dry while you're there, but then you put some beans after you've harvested. It is great. I can say both these programs are fabulous because I'm not teaching them. So I'm not bragging. I'm saying my instructors that we have there are so fabulous. And the Hawaii one, we also do part farm and part chocolate making. So you go into the factory and you go through the process of making chocolate. So those are really fun. Those are great programs, and they give you that I know what happens now. I know exactly, I've tasted a cocoa pod, the mucilage, which is a horrible word. Tastes fabulous, like lychee or banana or whatever. Anyway, I
Yeah.
could wax poetic.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And Alysha, have you got to go to some of these farms? Because, really shouldn't you be able to go too?
So I could go whenever I wanted. As I mentioned, I do have 3 boys, so and they are still at an age where they do need me, and so being away for a week at a time is a bit tough. I did have an opportunity. We went to Hawaii on vacation, and so one of Pam's friends has a cocoa farm, and so I actually took the boys, and we all there's like a picture right there of the boys on the farm. So yeah, so we did get to see the trees and see the pods and I have video of all 3 of them like cracking a pod and opening it up, and So so I have got to see it firsthand and taste the mucilage, and so very
Really
fortunate.
is a terrible word.
It is a
Oh,
terrible
no,
word.
it is. It's called baba
Yeah.
in
Yes,
in
right,
South
right,
America. So let's call it baba. That's a
right.
much nicer name.
Much better. Much better.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
And
sorry,
no, go ahead.
I do think one of the things that people sometimes don't maybe see when they're coming into the industry one of is the fact that we teach everyone about the industry is such a huge strength of our programs that I think if you just dive in to the making and the recipes and all of that, and you don't have that understanding, I mean, you don't have that appreciation for your core ingredient. And especially now when we are talking about having to raise prices, having consumers be able to feel connected to that and you being able to tell that story is really important, in terms of differentiating yourself from, big chocolate, whatever word you want to use, because we are giving people a higher quality ingredient, a higher quality experience. And so being able to speak about that, knowledgeably, personally, I think is really, really powerful for people, in their own marketing for their own businesses.
Yeah. And honestly, like, so when I took my master chocolatier course, Michael of Michael's Chocolates, we
Well,
were in the class
I
together.
love Michael. He's such a sweetheart.
yeah,
Love
yeah.
Michael.
Right.
And the thing is, so now I have that person that, we went through the course together. We're still friends. We're the only ones that came out of the course that actually did chocolate. The other ones that were there were like, oh, I just want to know everything. I have no interest in doing this as a business. But it
Yeah,
was great because now I've got this other person that I can chat to. And so the other thing with the courses is yeah, you don't just teach recipes, but you're also building a community. And
Yes.
yeah,
it's always funny
yeah,
because I'll have chocolatier. I have a lot of chocolatiers that contact me for information, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sure you're not going to tell me, but where did you get, this mold or this?" I'm like, "I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. I can't
yeah,
personally support my wholesaler. I need you
yeah,
to buy from them as well."
yeah,
But it's kind of this thing where the majority of people in the chocolate industry, there's a few that are like, no, I don't talk to anybody. That's fine. You do your thing. But the
Mhm.
majority of people are super willing to help each
oh,
other out.
It's
absolutely.
so true.
Hmm.
I
And
remember the first time I went to the Northwest Chocolate Festival, so it probably would have been like 8 years ago. I ran into someone who was a brewer, like a craft brewer, and he said, "I'm so shocked by how open everyone is." And he said, I mean, granted, when you're making beer, everyone uses the same like four ingredients or whatever, so they have to be a bit more gatekeepery about their formulations and things. But he said, "I can't believe how all of you just go around and just tell everyone everything." And I said, "Yeah, we're a pretty lovely bunch. That's just kind of how
Yeah.
the industry is. There's not a
yeah,
lot of that."
Well, and part of it is we're a very small market.
Mm,
We're a small niche of the chocolate business. I think probably worldwide there might be 5,000 chocolatiers, chocolatier, maybe. And in the chocolate making, the artisan chocolate making, maybe 1,000. It there aren't very many of us. And if you think about your town, or your city, how many chocolate shops, not candy, but chocolate shops are there? In a lot of cases, none.
yeah,
And in one case, maybe one. So we're a very small group of people. And so when we get together, we're so excited. And, we love, sharing and talking and sharing stories and techniques and all that kind of stuff. One of the things when we do our face to face programs, the one thing that comes out of those is exactly what you were talking about with Michael. People get to know each other and they tend to keep those friendships for a very long time. And the same with our online programs. When you're in our like professional chocolatier program, which starts on Friday, we'll have a class of like 20 or 30 people, and they will be together sharing information, knowing about each other, talking about their pluses and minuses for 3 months. So a lot of friendships come out of that
yeah,
that
absolutely.
yeah.
And
lasts years.
And
Yeah.
who else understands you than another chocolatier, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We're
Exactly.
yeah. We're also just big believers in the kind of rising tides lift all boats philosophy, that to Pam's point about the industry being small, we all have a role to play in educating consumers and helping them understand, what exactly, is the difference between what we make versus what they can buy at the grocery store, or drugstore. And so, us working together collectively just benefits everyone if, consumers have that understanding.
That's right.
Absolutely. And it's funny, you made a good point, Pam. Like if I look at Edmonton, where I'm at, Edmonton and area, so St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Beaumont, that whole thing, we're like 1.2 million people. I can't feed all
Right.
those people. I
Yeah.
can't. I'm a tired person already. So for me, it's like, it's great if you found this chocolatier and this chocolatier, and that's who you like. We're all friends. So it's funny
Yeah.
because
Right.
I was at a market once, and me and a chocolatier, she's not around anymore. We were talking one day, and people were walking by, and they're like, "The chocolatiers are talking," and we're like, "Yes, we are." And they're just like, "Oh," and people will even be like, "You buy other people's chocolates?" "Oh, yes, I do. If I get the chance to go to Sweet Lollapalooza and buy from Brett Waugh, I'm
Yeah.
buying some chocolate," right?
Right.
I wanna try everybody's chocolate. I want everybody to do well, and
Yeah.
this, oh, people will say, "Who's your competition?" Nobody, because nobody does what I do, and I don't do
Yep.
what they do.
Exactly.
I don't want to do what they
Exactly.
do. Make your
Yep.
bonbons.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, it's true. Everybody brings their own vision, their own feeling about their taste buds. You know, you'll make one bar that could have, in essence, the same kind of cacao, the same type, the same whatever, the blah, blah, put whatever else into it. It'll be totally different from someone else doing it because we're all individuals. And that's what's really great about
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So,
everyone brings their own story into why they got into the
it. Yeah.
business. Like that's another way that, helps your customers feel connected to you. And yeah, everyone's different. There's room for everyone to do their own thing. And even I always find it interesting how even with chocolate makers, like they could have the same batch of beans and
Yeah.
dandelions will taste different from Manoas or whatever
Yeah.
because that's just they make them slightly differently.
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
you really have to, that's an excellent way to look at it. You have your own voice with chocolate, and it's going to be different. And that's why I love buying other people's stuff, because if somebody else has made, say it's maybe just even a fruit and nut bar, it's a completely
Right.
different fruit and nut than what I might put in my bar, because I'm
Hmm.
like,
Right.
no, I want these fruits in my bar.
Yeah, talking about Michael, I ran into him once at a show and we had this like 15-minute conversation about his almonds. Like he's like very passionate about his almonds and where he gets them from and how he roasts
Right.
them and other people will just throw their almonds in the chocolate and call it a day, right? So everyone does things a little bit differently and that's what makes
Right.
it so amazing that everyone can do that.
Yeah. Even I
Yeah.
interviewed a gal yesterday that makes cashew cheese out of,
Oh, okay.
cashews. And she
Yeah,
was like, people don't understand the difference between low grade cashews and organic high grade cashews. And she's like,
sure.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
flavor is completely different. One is bitter,
Yeah,
one is not bitter, you know?
you're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so even just,
Absolutely.
yeah, and just little things like that. And like, we're super picky about sourcing our ingredients. And I have to tell you, I have a Luis Amato is now another chocolate teacher of mine. I love him so much. He is the best. And I was helping one of his students out, and so his student called me and was like, needed help with shipping, and I said, well, you're building relationships with other people, right? No. I'm like, oh. I said, are you like, maybe do some local things? No, why would I do that? I'm like, oh. And
Yeah.
he was very
Yeah.
much like he was going to be his own island. I was like, good luck to you.
That's right.
You
Right.
can't,
That's
you
right.
can't be your own island in this industry. You need people to shout
Yeah.
from the rooftops about what you do, but also you need those partnerships for ingredients, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
I said, okay. Like we have all these really amazing partnerships, even for our holiday season. We've got a maple guy that we're doing stuff with. He's local. Sure, my ingredients are going to cost more, but people are going to lose their minds.
I know. Yeah.
And we have
Yeah.
so many students that it's so amazing to see those local partnerships. You know, it's like the distillery or the apple cider farm down the road, or there's a lot of that, which, again, that helps
Yeah.
everyone in your local
Hold on
community.
one.
This has been absolutely amazing. Now, where can people find you to connect and see all the incredible work that you're doing?
Well, so obviously our website is ecolechocolat.com. We are at Ecole Chocolat pretty much anywhere that you could think of. Facebook,
Yeah.
Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok I've started dabbling in. So Threads, we're pretty much Ecole Chocolat everywhere. So we love answering questions, love chatting with
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you guys you're great with engaging with everybody. And I love that, because people have questions. People are always like, what should I do? And again, like the
Yeah.
support that you give us chocolatiers to get us through those seasons. I do read all the posts and I do appreciate it very much.
I'll tag you in the next one. I'll say, here you go, Colleen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Thank you again for coming on today. For everybody at home,
Thank you for having us.
oh, you're so welcome. This was a thrill. Everybody at home listening, please make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for joining the Food Explorer podcast today. Pam and Alysha, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.